They found Troy face down in an alley off West Grand Boulevard, 18 years old, 3 bullets in his back. He wasn't in the game. He was Big Meech's younger brother, and the men who killed him had no idea what they'd just set in motion. The phone rang at 2:47 a.m. in the morning. Big Meech didn't sleep heavy, but he slept. Atlanta was warm that night, the kind of late summer heat that stuck to everything. He answered on the second ring. No greeting, just silence on his end, waiting. The voice on the other side belonged to Southwest T. Steady, careful, but there was something underneath it, something that didn't need to be said out loud. "It's Troy." 2 words. That's all it took. Meech didn't ask how, didn't ask where. He sat up on the edge of the bed, bare feet on the floor, and stared at the wall. The room was dark, except for the glow of the city outside. He could hear his own breathing, controlled, even. When? 2 hours ago. Off West Grand. Troy wasn't in the game. He didn't move work, didn't run with the crews. He was 18 years old and still figuring out what he wanted to be. He wore jerseys and played ball at the park in Livernois. He smiled too much. I talked too much. Laughed at everything. And now he is gone. Meech stood. He didn't raise his voice, didn't slam anything. He walked to the window and looked out over the city. Phone still pressed to his ear. "I'm on my way." He hung up. There was no hesitation, no plan discussed, no strategy laid out at the moment, because the plan was already in motion. It had been in motion the second Troy hit the pavement. By 3:15 a.m., Big Meech was in his car, heading north on I-85. Detroit was 9 hours away. He'd be there by noon. Big Meech built his empire in southwest Detroit the way his father built furniture, with patience, precision, and respect for the foundation. By the late 90s, BMF wasn't just a name. It was a structure. Black Mafia Family moved weight from Atlanta to Detroit to Los Angeles. But it wasn't the product that made them untouchable. It was the system, the loyalty, the unspoken laws that everyone, from the runners to the lieutenants, understood without being told. In the Southwest, people knew Meech before they knew BMF. He grew up on Edsel Street, where the houses sat close together and everybody's business was everyone's. He knew which grandmothers needed their rent paid, which kids needed school clothes, which families were one paycheck away from eviction. When he came up, he didn't forget that. BMF didn't recruit through fear. They recruited through opportunity. Young men who had nothing were given structure, purpose, and a paycheck that kept their lights on. In exchange, Meech asked for one thing: loyalty. Not to him, to the code. And the code was simple. You don't touch women. You don't touch children. You don't touch anyone outside the game. Troy was outside the game. That's why his death wasn't just murder. It was a violation. A line crossed that couldn't be uncrossed. The men who killed him either didn't know who his brother was, or they knew and thought distance would protect them. They thought Big Meech was in Atlanta. They thought Southwest had gone soft. They thought wrong. By the time Meech's car crossed the Michigan state line, the entire neighborhood already knew. Not because anyone made calls, not because it was on the news. Because grief in Detroit moves like weather. You feel it before you see it. Troy's mother hadn't left her house. She sat in the living room with the lights off, rosary beads in her lap, staring at a photo of her son in his high school cap and gown. She didn't cry yet. The tears would come later. Right now, she was just still. Outside, the block was quiet. No music, no cars cruising. Even the dealers posted up on the corner had stepped back. There's a kind of respect that doesn't need enforcement. People just know Big Meech wasn't a gangster to them. He was one of theirs. And when you take from one of theirs, you take from all of them. The question wasn't if something would happen. It was when. Big Meech arrived in Detroit just after noon. He didn't go to his house. Didn't stop at any of the spots his crew ran. He drove straight to his mother's place on Edsel, parked on the street, and walked up the steps like he'd done 1,000 times before. Inside, the air was heavy. She was still sitting in the same chair, same photo in her hands. When she saw him, she didn't get up, didn't say anything, just looked at him with eyes that had already cried themselves dry. He sat down next to her, put his hand over hers, and for 10 minutes, neither of them spoke. That silence said more than any conversation ever could. When he finally stood, he kissed her forehead and walked back outside. Southwest T was waiting by the car. He didn't ask questions, didn't offer condolences. There'd be time for that later. Right now, there was work to do. Where was he? Meech asked. Alley behind the carryout on West Grand. 3 shots. Back, shoulder, neck. Meech nodded slowly. His face didn't change. His voice stayed level. Who found him? Old man who runs the barber shop next door. Called it in around 1. Police? Came through. Asked questions. Nobody said anything. That was expected. In the Southwest, you didn't talk to the police. Not because of fear, because there were other ways problems got handled. Meech walked the block, slowly, hands in his pockets. People saw him and nodded. Some crossed the street just to shake his hand. Others stood on their porches and watched in silence. Everyone knew what this meant. He stopped at the carryout. I walked around back to the alley. The blood was still there, dark, dried into the concrete. Someone had put flowers down. A teddy bear, a candle that had burned out. Meech stared at the spot for a long time. Then he turned and walked back to the street. By evening, the names started coming in. Not from snitches, not from informants, from people who respected what Troy represented. A kid who didn't deserve this. A kid who stayed out of it. The kind of innocence the neighborhood tried to protect because there was so little of it left. 3 names, all from a crew on the east side. Rivals who'd been trying to push into BMF territory for months. They'd been making noise, testing boundaries, seeing how far they could go before someone pushed back. Killing Troy wasn't a strategy. It was reckless. They thought hitting someone connected to Meech would make them look fearless, make them look powerful. What they didn't understand was that power isn't loud. It's passionate. Big Meech gathered his lieutenants in a back room off Verner Highway. No phones, no interruptions. Just 8 men sitting around a table in silence while Meech stood at the head, arms crossed, eyes calm. He let the quiet sit for a moment. Then he said one word. Wait. The word didn't sit well. Around the table, you could feel it. The tension, the need to move, to respond, to make it loud and immediate so everyone knew what happened when you crossed BMF. One of the younger lieutenants, a man named Rowe, leaned forward. Meech, we got addresses. We got routines. We know where they sleep. We could be done with this by tonight. Meech didn't look at him. He stood at the window, looking out at the street. His voice came back calm, flat. I said, wait. Rowe sat back. No one else spoke. Southwest T watched from the corner, arms folded. He'd been with Meech long enough to know this wasn't hesitation. This wasn't fear. This was control, the kind that separates legends from bodies. Meech turned around slowly. He looked at each man in that room, not with anger, with certainty. They want us to move fast. They want us to be loud. They want sirens and news cameras and everybody talking about how the BMF went to war over this. He let that settle. That's what they expect. That's what they're ready for. He walked to the table, placed both hands flat on the surface, leaned in. We don't give people what they expect. The room stayed silent. They killed my brother because they thought it would make them dangerous. They thought it would put fear in us. They thought wrong. He straightened up. We move on day 3, not before. You go home. You stay quiet. You don't talk to anybody. You don't even look at them wrong if you see them on the street. Let them think we're scared. Let them think we're confused. Let them get comfortable. Southwest T nodded. He understood. The others were starting to. When we move, Meech said, it won't be a message. It'll be a memory. The meeting ended without another word. Meanwhile, On the east side, the three men who killed Troy were doing exactly what Meech predicted. They got comfortable. The first one, a man named Juke, was at a barber shop on Gratiot, laughing with his boys, talking loudly about how quiet Southwest had been, how nobody came for him. Maybe BMF wasn't what people said they were. The second, a kid they called Little P, was at his girl's apartment, feet up, playing 2K, phone buzzing with messages from people asking if he was worried. He wasn't. He'd done jobs before. This one felt no different. The third, the oldest of the group, a man named Shields, was the only one with sense. He stayed inside, kept his curtains drawn, didn't answer calls unless he recognized the number. He told the others to lay low. They didn't listen. Shields had been in the game long enough to know silence didn't mean weakness. It meant planning. But even he didn't know how close it was. Back in Southwest, Big Meech sat alone in his car outside Troy's high school. The parking lot was empty. The sun was setting. He stared at the building for a long time, thinking about all the things his brother would never get to do. Graduate, get a job, have kids, grow old. All of that is gone now, and someone had to pay for it. Not with noise, with precision. He started the car and drove away. Day 3 was tomorrow. It started just after midnight. Juke was the first. He left the barber shop around 11:30, still talking loud, still laughing. His car was parked 2 blocks down on Gratiot. He walked alone, hands in his pockets, head on a swivel, but not enough. He never made it to the car. 2 men stepped out from between buildings. No masks, no theatrics, just purpose. Juke saw them and reached for his waistband, but his hand never got there. It was over in seconds. They left him in the alley behind a closed-down liquor store. No one heard anything. No one saw anything. By the time the sun came up, someone would call it in. But by then, it wouldn't matter. Little P was next. He was still at his girl's apartment in East Point, controllers in hand, half a blunt burning in the ashtray. She was asleep in the bedroom. He heard the knock at the door around 1:45 a.m. Soft. Controlled. He looked through the peephole. I saw nobody. That should have been the warning. He opened the door anyway. They were standing to the side. The moment the door cracked, they pushed through. Quick, silent, professional. Little P tried to run. I tried to yell. Didn't get the chance. His girl woke up 20 minutes later to the sound of silence. She walked into the living room and found the door open. The game still paused on the screen. Little P was gone. She called his phone 16 times. He never answered. They found his body 3 days later in a field off I-94. No ID, no wallet, just him. Shields was the hardest. He'd been smart, stayed inside, kept his head down. But fear makes you sloppy. Paranoia makes you predictable. He'd been ordering food every night. Same delivery service, same routine. On the third night, the knock came at 3 a.m. He looked through the peephole, saw a delivery bag, saw a uniform, saw a kid who looked too young to be a threat. He opened the door with the chain still on. I didn't order anything. The kid smiled. I know. The door came off the hinges. Shields reached for the gun on his couch, never touched it. They were already inside, already on him. He fought harder than the other 2, make noise, broke a lamp, knocked over a table. It didn't matter. By 3:20 a.m., the apartment was silent again. Shields was gone. Big Meech never left Southwest that night. He sat in his mother's living room with the lights off, hands folded, staring at nothing. His phone didn't ring. It didn't need to. He already knew. At 4 a.m., Southwest T walked in. Didn't say a word, just nodded once. Meech nodded back. It was done. No guns fired in the street. No witnesses. No spectacle. Just 3 men erased from the map like they'd never existed. That's what happens when you touch the wrong family. You don't get war. You get silence. And silence is permanent. The The first body turned up on day 4, Juke. Found behind the liquor store on Gratiot. No witnesses, no casings, no surveillance footage that worked. The detectives who caught the case knew what they were looking at before they even arrived. This wasn't random. By day 7, Little P's body was discovered in the field off I-94, decomposed enough that the time of death was hard to pin down. No ID on him, but they ran prints, matched him to a known associate of the crew that had been pushing into BMF territory. Shields was never found. His apartment was clean, too clean, like someone had taken the time to wipe it down. His car was still parked outside. His phone went straight to voicemail. The family reported him missing, but no one pushed it. In Detroit, some people just disappear. That's the way it works. The detectives knew. They sat in their precinct office with files spread across the desk. Troy's murder, Juke's body, Little P's body, Shields missing, all connected, all pointing back to one name, Big Meech. But knowing and proving are two different things. They had no witnesses. No one is willing to talk. No evidence that would hold up in court. Even the people who hated BMF stayed quiet. Because in the Southwest, you don't cooperate with the police. Not because of fear, because there's an order to things. A code older than any badge. The lead detective, a man named Carver, sat back in his chair and stared at the caseboard for a long time. Then he closed the file, let it go cold. His partner looked at him. "Are you serious?" Carver nodded. "We know what happened. We know who did it, but we're not going to prove it. And even if we did, nobody's going to testify. Let it sit." The case went into a drawer. It never came back out. Troy's funeral was held on a Saturday. Hundreds showed up. People who knew him. People who didn't. The church on Livernois was packed to the back. Standing room only. Troy's mother sat in the front row, surrounded by family, still holding that same photo. Big Meech sat 3 rows back. He wore a black suit. No jewelry, no entourage. Just him, silent, still. Outside, 2 unmarked police cars sat across the street. Detectives Carver and his partner watched through tinted windows as people filed in. They took photos, wrote down license plates, noted faces. But they didn't move, because they understood something most people don't. In Detroit, there are 2 kinds of law, the one written in books, and the one written in blood. Big Meech had already delivered his verdict. The case was closed, not in a courtroom, in the streets.